All right. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Linda Attaway. I'm actually a 2000 and 2001 graduate of the WashU School of Engineering. And just kind of give a little bit about myself, but I spent 5 years as a developer, and then I went and pursued my degree with an MBA, and so kind of have done a lot in the workplace, and worked in this process. Have kind of, I think, come across a lot of the questions and the reason why you're here today, and kind of coming back to, paid work and going back to paid work. So kind of bring it back. So we are here with the WashU Alumni Association. I'm excited to welcome you, alumni, parents, and friends, to this webinar with Anna McKay, and I will be introducing her in just a minute. So before we begin, I want to explain the format for today's session. Your screen will feature myself and then our presenter, Anna. We ask that you keep your cameras off, microphones muted during the presentation. After that, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll encourage you to participate, ask questions through the chat box, or if you kind of raise your hand or push thing, I'll ask you to turn on your microphone so we can kind of manage the noise that way. And I know Anna's excited to answer a lot of your questions. This event is being recorded. We're going to post it to the Alumni Association YouTube channel in a few days. And I am really excited to have you get to know Anna, as I've gotten to get to know her over the past 2 years. We met very kind of coincidentally, in that we are in the same space. I've been working in the startup world for the past 20 years. Started many companies at the same time, having 3 children, so growing a family like many of us have all done. And with learning, I learned that I wanted to create a company that really helped moms, especially, manage the household. And so in that process, I got to meet Anna, and we sat down and met and realized we went to WashU together at the exact same time over the exact same 10 years. So that's very cool. And so maybe we didn't know each other back then, but we've become really good friends now. And so I am super excited to get to meet her. So kind of to reiterate, so she went to WashU in 2000 and graduated and received her master's in accounting from the University of Georgia in 2001, which is really fast, by the way, Anna. 1, 2, wow. She then spent 10 years working in public accounting at Deloitte. And then after a decade in the corporate world, she became an ICF certified coach. And she began a coaching journey in 2008 to help others find careers they could connect with, and they could excel with. And during this process, her life was amazing. She moved to the Philippines and China on expat assignments with her husband, and decided to focus on being a mom and coach on the side, because that worked with their lifestyle at the time. And then moved back to Houston in 2013. Over those years, she's met many, many other parents, mostly women, who are transitioning from high-powered careers to expat spouses and motherhood. And then after opting out of the workforce to work with their family and their children, a lot of women are ready to get back to paid work, but find that they have a hard time. They feel they lost, isolated, don't know where to start, don't know which skills to apply. So she started Parents Pivot, and she helps parents find careers that they love doing after a career pause. And she works with one-on-one coaching, workshops on resumes, LinkedIn, salary negotiation, return to work programs, placement services, onboard coaching. And she's helping parents tackle all their fears and anxiety and positions. And so I hope you all join me in welcoming Anna McKay. Anna, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. I really appreciate having you introduce me, and I'll talk a little bit more about us a little bit later on, but thank you so much. So thanks everybody for being here today. I'm really excited to get to know you guys a little bit, and to share some information and to share some tips that are hopefully really helpful for you all in your return to paid work, or if you're transitioning careers, they'll also have some tips for you. And so I'm going to give a little bit of a presentation for about 30 minutes or so, and then I look forward to your questions. So some of you have already sent some in. Thank you so much for that. We have those, and Linda will ask me some of those questions a little bit later. But as we're going through the presentation, please think through some of your questions, and I'd be happy to answer them as we get to the end of the session. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Here we go. So back to school and back to work. So does back to school mean back to work for you? And that's kind of a reference to many of the women that I met, and it's mostly women. I do work with men as well, returning to paid work, but many of the people that I work with and coach returning to paid work oftentimes contemplate a return to paid work at that kind of back to school time, at that time when their kids are going back to school. Maybe children have entered kindergarten, maybe another inflection point is middle school, another inflection point is when their children get their driver's license or start to be a little bit more independent that way. And then I also work with people who are empty nesters whose children kind of left and they have a 20 or 20 plus year career pause. So run the gamut of 1 year to 20 years. So no matter where you are in your journey, and I'd love to know that, we've got something for you today. All right, so thank you. Linda gave an introduction already about me. I have been through several career transitions myself. I made that career transition from accountant to career coach in 2008. And I knew, when I was doing accounting, I knew that it was something that I could do and that I was good at, and it would be a nice, stable career, but it wasn't what I loved to do. And so when I found coaching, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I was excited to start my business in 2008. And at the same time, that's when I transitioned to move overseas. So we moved to the Philippines, and I started coaching expats and locals in the Philippines, and then in career transitions and leadership development. And then I had our first daughter in the Philippines, and then took a little bit of a pause after that before we moved to Beijing. And then we moved to Beijing, and I coached mostly expats there, also going through career transitions. And then I had our second daughter in Beijing, and then we moved to Houston in 2013. So throughout that time, I stopped and started my career several times. We had several international moves and 2 daughters. And so there's a lot of transition in that process. So if you have been through any of that, I know what you're going through. I also met so many amazing people, mostly women who had paused their careers to move overseas with their spouses or partners' work, and were trying to figure out what they wanted to do when they returned back to their home country, and found that really challenging. And I would coach returners on a one-off basis in China and the Philippines. And then again in Houston, once my children entered kindergarten, the same phenomenon happened. And many of my friends became clients and were returners trying to figure out what they wanted to do when they returned to paid work. And so after several years as a coach and working with returners on a one-off kind of basis, I decided to found Parents Pivot in 2019 to really be that resource for returners. And it's based off of my own experience and meeting so many incredibly talented women who had chosen to take a pause and wanted to return. And I wanted to be part of that process to help support them get back to paid work. And so, like I mentioned, we do one-on-one and group coaching, and have several workshops, but also in Houston, work with companies who are looking to hire returners and get them back to paid work. So today we'll talk a little bit about the landscape for returning to paid work, and then we'll talk about some common struggles that returners face. And this is, what I've learned and seen over and over again throughout my years of coaching returners. And then we'll have a Q&A session. So we have a poll, I believe. So I'm curious for you all, where are you in your return to paid work or career transition? Are you looking to return if you have a relatively short return, or is it longer? Or are you looking to make a career transition versus a return? Or are you just here because you want to support fabulous returners? So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to answer those questions. And then looks good. Oh, wow. It looks like we've got so far pretty kind of even split between, oh, all right. Good. Okay. Well, so it looks like most of you are returning to work between 2 and 10 years. I'm going to end the poll. And then we've got, yep. Okay. So we've got most of you are returning between 2 and 10 years, have a career pause of 2 to 10 years. And then others of you are returning after more than a 10-year career pause. Some are making a transition. Okay, great. So that's the majority. And then we've got a few people who are returning after 1 or 2 years, and a few that want to support returners. And we're so happy that you're all here. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about the landscape for returners. And so when I talk about a returner, that means anybody who has taken a career pause, whether you're paused to care for aging parents or children or yourselves, if you've moved around, or if you've taken a sabbatical. So most of the data is around returners, focuses on stay-at-home mothers returning. But when I talk about returners, it can be anybody in that group. And so we've got some pre-pandemic career pause data, and then we'll talk about the pandemic's impact on working mothers and mothers leaving the workforce. And then we'll talk about returning, the difficulties, and how to get back to paid work. So, okay, so pre-pandemic, 43% of highly skilled, master's educated and above full-time working women with children chose to off-ramp to care for their families. And 90% of them were eager to return at any given point. Millennial parents were choosing to stay home more than their Gen X parents did. And at that point, pre-pandemic, there were 3 million women nationwide at any point who were looking to return to paid work. The pandemic has increased that number, and we know that millions of women left during the pandemic. And many of them I'm talking to and are looking to get back and looking to consider that return, but many people don't necessarily want to return to the work that they were doing before. So how to make that transition, how to make that shift, and how to support people who want to return to paid work. There is unconscious and conscious bias against stay-at-home mothers returning to paid work, and that's something that we need to be aware of, because I want you guys to address it. Research shows that stay-at-home moms are half as likely to be called back for an interview as mothers who have been laid off or out of work for the same amount of time, which just really shows that there is that bias out there. And so it's not fair and it's not rational, but it's out there, so we need to address it. So I'll share some tips on how to do that. All right, so some common struggles. Next, we'll get to the common struggles section, and then Q&A. So these are the common struggles that I see. The first is that worrying about the hiring bias that I just spoke about. The next is a lack of confidence in your skills. The third is a lack of clarity around what you want to do for paid work, or and then the next one is overwhelmed by the job search process, kind of a lack of clarity around how to navigate the job search process today, because so many things have changed since the last time you looked for a job. And then finally, kind of a struggle to stay motivated in our job search. So many, if we're the lead parent, it's been our role to make sure that everybody is in the family is doing what they need to do and that the family is running smoothly. And so we can sometimes fall into that role of, putting other families members' needs ahead of our own, and then the job search gets sidelined. And so I'll talk a little bit about how to address that as well. So I want to see, I guess, if in the chat, if you can just say, have you experienced any of these things? Does this resonate with you? And I'll check the chat to see. Yes. Yeah. So, yep. Okay. It looks like some people have said all of them. Yes. Some of them have a couple. Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, so you're not alone, when you're returning to paid work. It's wonderful to hear everybody, a lot of people are in the same boat. So we will get you some tips and we'll help you get started with that and share some information. All right, so let's get started. Worried about the hiring bias around the gap in paid work. How do we address that? So first is to understand the bias, and the reasons for that bias is often a perceived lack of commitment, which has not been true for any of the people that I've coached, but that's a perceived lack of commitment that some employers can have, or a perceived lack of skills that some employers can have. So what do I encourage? I suggest that you talk about your pause and you own your story and you address these points. And so I want you to remember to directly address the 3 C's. So keep in mind that employers are only ever worried about 3 things: commitment. Will you do the job? Are you looking to get back to paid work? Are you excited about that? Competence. Can you do the job? What kind of experience do you have? What's your skill set? And then cultural fit or cultural add, like how will you add to our team? How will our team benefit because you are there? And so I'll get to the last one in particular a little bit later, but think about those 3 C's whenever you're talking in your resume and then in your interview skills. Make sure you address your commitment and talk about how excited you are to return to paid work, your competence, that you've got some relevant experience, whether it's in unpaid work, in your volunteer roles, or in prior professional experience, and then talk about the benefits and the value of adding you to their team and that cultural, how you're a cultural add. Okay, next is a lack of confidence in my skills. And so this is another really common phenomenon for returners. So I want you to think through and think about the value that you bring. And so oftentimes a mindset shift is required. We need to stop thinking about and being worried about the skills of everybody else. Don't worry about those. You can't do anything about anybody else. You can only do something about yourself. Another kind of mindset shift that people need to make is to think through, they think about what they don't have, what skills they don't have. And that's important to address at some point, but it also is important to focus on the skills that you do have and how you want to communicate those to an employer. So I've come up with this acronym DEPTH. Returners bring based on my experience working with returners, and many of these are relevant to career transitioners or career pivoters as well. So I say that returners and career pivoters have depth. As I'm going through these, I want you to think for yourself, how do you demonstrate that skill, and take some notes, and so that can help you with your resume and your interview stories as well down the line. So think through drive and determination. So many of the returners that I work with have been really active in the schools of their children or nonprofit volunteer roles, and they've shown that drive and determination and commitment in those roles. And so, if you can convey that, you can convey that you would be committed in an organizational or a company role. Next is energy. When people are returning to paid work or pivoting their career, they really bring a fresh energy to a team, to an organization, that people who have been continuously working often don't have. Or if you're been in the same industry forever, you often don't have that energy, that really fresh energy that returners and pivoters can bring. So think through that and think through how you might demonstrate that to an employer. The P in depth stands for professional experience. So many of you have prior professional experience that you can draw upon. And you may be comfortable talking with people from all different levels. And that professional experience can go a long way to demonstrating that you have some professional skills and some ability to work in that kind of professional setting. Next is thought-provoking questions and insight. And so there have been studies to show that if you come from a different background, have a different set of experiences, maybe a different industry, or you're returning to paid work, then you will have a different set of questions. You will have a different lens that you're looking at the situation through. And so because you have that lens, you'll have those different questions. You'll be able to ask thought-provoking questions that maybe people who have been consistently in that role or in that industry have not thought of. And finally, heart. The H stands for heart, because so many times as caregivers, we have the opportunity to develop empathy. And we know from studies that empathy is a huge, excellent characteristic that all leaders and managers need. And as caregivers, we've had the opportunity to demonstrate and practice that over and over again. So think through those, think through how you might have demonstrated some of those in your unpaid work and your volunteer roles. And then I wanted to add one more, Parents Pivot. So I've named my company Parents Pivot, and it has a kind of a double meaning, I feel that parents are really adaptable and agile, and I think that's a real strength of parents, because as a parent, lots of times you never know what's going to happen, and you have to kind of just adjust and make some changes and kind of go with the flow. And we've definitely seen that in the past year. So being agile and adaptable is another skill that you bring. So get specific about the value that you bring and demonstrate that in your resume. So this is an example of a coaching client of mine. Her name has been changed, and so she was a stay-at-home parent for 3 years, and she had a lack of confidence and didn't know how to address her career pause, didn't know how to talk about it in an interview. And we addressed that, and using the skills that we talked about in coaching, she was able to address it and talk through it confidently and demonstrate to an employer that she was ready and committed to get back to paid work, and that she could do the job. It was amazing to see her transformation from the first session where she just was really lacking the confidence to, by the end of our one-on-one engagement, 3 months later, she landed a job. And so that was really exciting to see her transformation. And we talked about many of the same skills that we talk about in the Thrive group coaching program. Next, the next common struggle is a lack of clarity around what you want to do for paid work. So if you've thought of any of this, you may not know what you want to do. You don't want to do necessarily what you did prior to your career pause. You don't know what skills you have that would be beneficial to an employer, and you're not sure how to figure out what you want to do. So I'm going to take a look in the chat and see, does this resonate with you all? Are you guys Is it kind of anybody feeling that? Yeah. Good. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. You all are not alone. This is the way that so many people feel, and it's amazing to see the shift that happens during coaching. Um, so I'm going to give you a couple of tips to how to find clarity. First is to look at the way that you chose to spend your time during your career pause. And we all know that as parents and caregivers, we have a lot of responsibilities that take up of our time, and we might not have choices about the way that we spend all of our time, but we do have choices about the way we spend some of our time. So pay attention to those times and reflect on how you made your choices. So I'm going to share a story about my mom. When we were growing up, she had a career pause while my brother and I were young. And she loves to cook. She was always entertaining. She was always having people over, and the party was always in the kitchen. And she was cooking, and she made amazing food. My dad tells a story about how she would bring cookbooks with her on vacation as her leisure reading. So this was very apparent to her friends and to my dad that she loved cooking. And so they encouraged her to look into being a caterer. So she started her own catering business and ended up being one of the most successful caterers in our city. And she was able to balance and integrate work and life in a way that worked for her and worked really well for our family. And I want to be able to help other parents know that they can do that as well. So taking a look through and thinking through the ways that you chose to spend your time. I have other clients who have I had another client who implemented a busing system for her neighborhood for the kids to go to school because there wasn't one in her neighborhood. And so she pulled that all together, organized, did all the logistics and operations work, and was able to get that accomplished for her neighborhood and her school. And so she saw that need. She chose to do that as part of a volunteer role, and she wasn't getting paid for that, but it was a need she saw in her community, and she got it done. And it was something that she enjoyed doing, that organizing and that logistical work. So next, after you've given some thought to how you've chosen to spend your time, write down from that, what you want in your next career, what you know you need in your next career, and what you don't want in your next career. Start to write this down. During the Thrive Group Coaching Program, we dive deeper into this and do some exercise to help you get clearer and continuously add to this list throughout the program. So we use assessments and coaching and other activities. So those are some tips to help you get started on finding clarity. And then I'm going to share a story about Dana, whose name has also been changed. So she was a stay-at-home parent for 16 years and just was not sure what she wanted to do. She had an MBA with a finance concentration and was in finance, an analyst with major financial institutions prior to her return, but did not want to go back to that. So she reflected on the work that she loved to do. She was a mentor in Big Brothers Big Sisters, and she loved that program. She was a Girl Scout troop leader and really enjoyed the work that she did there. And she had also raised money for her school. And so a couple of months after the Thrive program, she landed a role as a community development person within a startup that was focused on fundraising for schools. So it really aligned with the work that she had done and what she chose to do during her career pause. And that was really exciting to see. So a couple of these next two struggles I will address together. So many times people feel overwhelmed by the job search process and feel like so much has changed in that process since they last looked for a job, or they struggle to stay motivated in the job search and put other family members' needs ahead of their own. So have you asked yourself any of these questions? So, or thought to yourself any of these things. The last time I applied for a job, LinkedIn was not prominent. How do I navigate the job search process? How do I talk about my gap in paid work on my resume, LinkedIn, or in interviews? My job search process keeps getting derailed because I keep getting distracted by other things. How do I stay focused and motivated? My friends have either been continuously working or happy staying home. No one understands what I'm going through, or I enjoy learning from others who are going through the same thing. Where can I find my people? So if you've thought any of those things, then just let me know. Yes, yes, yes. Wonderful. Okay, it looks like some of you have thought this as well. So how do we address this? I First of all, I think that having a group and having a community around you who really can support you and know what you're going through is so critical. And that's actually how Linda and I met. Like she mentioned earlier, we're both in the space of supporting moms and supporting parents. And so, whenever I'm doing something, if I'm, when I was founding Parents Pivot, I reached out to other people who I knew were kind of going through the same thing that I was too. And I found Linda and was so excited to do so. And, we're in community together and we are able to support each other. Like I'm so honored that she's here today to introduce me and to set up this workshop for you all. So everybody needs people like Linda. Everybody needs people in their community who will rally around them and support them. And that's what the Thrive Group Coaching Program is for so many of the returners who go through that program. It's people that you can call on. I know several of the cohorts that have happened already, still stay in touch with each other and still reach out and support each other. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Thrive program. It's the Thrive Like a Mother group coaching program can address all the challenges that we talked about today. Will help you find clarity around what you want to do for paid work. We'll dive a little bit deeper into some exercises around that. Will help you navigate the job search with clarity on how to do a resume. And I know you all have some questions about that, so we can address that in the Q&A. How to do a resume, how to do your LinkedIn, how to do your interview prep and salary negotiation. Will help you with tips for all of that. I have a Thrive team of coaches that I've trained through the framework they're returners themselves, and they know all the tips and tricks. Will also help you build confidence in the value that you bring and the community of returners with similar goals, and coached by the Thrive team to hold you accountable and expertly guide you through the process. So it is a 9-week session, 9-week program with those group coaching sessions that starts October 6th at 12 p.m. Eastern and runs through December 8th. So you get in the group coaching program, you get one-on-one session with your Thrive coach ahead of the group coaching sessions. There are 9 live virtual group coaching sessions, and the sessions are small so that you're able to, we put a limit on the number of people who enter the program so that you have an opportunity to ask all the questions that you want. And there are 8 workbooks with example resumes, cover letters, networking, outreach, email examples, worksheets, clarity and confidence activities, and tips and more. There's also a Cultivating Career Confidence digital course that I've created that outlines 7 confidence building strategies so that you'll have that to reference. And then we talk about it in the live coaching sessions as well. And you will receive feedback specific to your elevator pitch, your resume, your LinkedIn, your interview stories by the Thrive team, who are experts who know what works for returners. You'll build your network, which is the best way to find a job. You'll have access to, I'm always happy to connect people, and the Thrive team of coaches is as well. And you'll get support from your group and the Thrive team to help you stay motivated and accountable and not get sidetracked during your job search process. And so I'm offering a bonus to anybody who's on the call today and would like to sign up for Thrive by Saturday evening. You will get an extra one-on-one session session with your Thrive coach. And the Thrive coaches are Lily and Holly, and they are excellent. If you have some questions and would rather talk before signing up, then I'm always happy to set up a call with anybody, and I'll give you a link. And I believe that Jenna will send out some information and a link to my schedule a little bit later. So I want to tell you about one more person, Carla, who was a stay-at-home parent for 18 years. And so she was out of the workforce for so long, she didn't know who to listen to. She didn't have that community around her, and she felt like so much had changed. She was a consultant with Accenture and financial analyst, and had her BBA in finance. And throughout her career pause, she had held more than 18 significant leadership volunteer positions. She had 5 years of professional experience and then an 18-year career pause. And so she did amazing things in her professional life prior to her pause, but she did amazing things during her pause as well. And so when we worked together, after we worked together, she built up her confidence and found her clarity, and returned as an account manager for an interior design firm within 6 months of Thrive. And then recently she signed on with Accenture again, actually, and returned after so many years. And I'm really excited that she's going to get that opportunity. So she landed the job that she wanted, and she landed an interim role to kind of help her get back on her feet. And then she's now working back as a consultant. So congratulations to Carla. So Q&A, and I know Linda has some questions that we'll use to get started, but hopefully you've written some questions down, or I know I've missed some questions in the chat, so maybe Linda's got those. So Linda, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I do. I had to find the unmute button first, so it took me a second. So I think the first section, there's a couple of questions that kind of collaborate together, so we're going to bunch them a little bit. But there are a couple questions specifically about long pauses, which you just spoke about with obviously with Carlos. So kind of maybe bouncing off that and addressing that, of saying, especially when you had so one was a 26-year pause, and was very much was a technical job before. So she had a technical background. And so where do you start now? And there's a secondary one that's a creative idea for someone that stopped. It's maybe creating a package yourself that isn't tech-based. So realizing that you haven't been in the development world for quite a long time. How do you address that? How do you kind of, when it was such a timely, area?
Yeah. And thank you. So I've had a couple of clients who have been in that kind of situation before. So they had tech roles before, but technology, of course, is something that has changed so much in 5 years, even, and 2 years. And marketing is another role that a lot of people want to return to, but that's another role that's changing very quickly. And so I think part of it is, using this time, using this pause to really be reflective about what you want to do next. You may want to go back into a technology role, you may not. But thinking through for yourself what you might want to do next. And if it is something in technology, or if it is something in digital marketing or another field that has changed a lot since you were there, then it's about identifying what specific skills you need to get back into paid work. And so there are lots of certification programs that are free out there, and I share all that information in the Thrive program. But there are lots of sources of free upskilling that you can do. Yeah. To get you kind of caught up to where you need to be today. But the first thing is really to reflect on what it is that you want to do. I don't want anybody to go back out and just and pick the wrong career and then get frustrated and quit. So that reflection time is really, really key for that, for preparing for that. So yeah,
very cool. Okay, so which next one would be how do you, if you've been out of the workforce for 2 years or 1 year or longer, how do you build up that respect that maybe some of our returners feel like they've lost, and kind of
Mhm.
how do you project that forward?
Yeah. So that's where the confidence building strategies come in. And there are lots of things that you can do, but really connecting into that depth acronym and additional skills that you have, and reflecting on, okay, well, what have I learned during my career pause? How have I grown? And that can be really hard to see for yourself. So that's why working with a coach is helpful, can help you get to see those things in yourself.
Okay. I okay. Good. Kind of bouncing. So this is
Yeah.
really great. These are great questions because they're flowing right out of the other. So kind of bouncing from that, what are some strategies taking and of taking all those experiences you have done, and how do we package that into something and translate into a resume? So taking volunteer work or school boards, how do we communicate that in a way that then the workplace will accept and understand?
Yes, 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 yes. And I think it's about using and understanding the business language of the role that you are going into. And that's something that we can support you with through the Thrive program. But it's about, I just had one client go through Thrive who was in marketing consulting, and she had a role in her school board where she was heavily involved in some strategic marketing work for them. And so it was about just saying what she had done in that role, and using some terms and some business language to convey that, okay, well, what she was doing in this role, even though she was unpaid, even though it was a volunteer role, was just as valuable for the organization, and was the exact same thing that somebody who is a strategic communications person in an organization would do. And so part of it is about shifting your mindset and finding that confidence in your ability, and knowing that those skills that you have that you may not realize that you have are transferable and are hugely valuable to an organization. So a lot of it is really just figuring out and reflecting and understanding what your experience is, and then how to translate that using the business language and terminology of the role that you want. So I know it can happen. So many people have been in your
Yeah.
shoes before and have been able to make that return. So I know it can happen for you too.
So with that, how do you? So what about references? So like that's something that a lot of employers talk about. And so one question was, how do you reconnect with references that may be older? I'm kind of thinking like if you're doing some volunteers, some other things, there could be some new references that you wouldn't think of as traditional. Maybe I'm on a track there.
You've got
Okay.
it, Linda.
Woo.
Exactly. So definitely think about references of that people that are in your network now, people that are that you see at your kid's school, that you may have been on a volunteer team with, that you may have worked in that kind of capacity with, who understand and know some of those skills. And then I would not be hesitant to reach out to people that you knew 18, 20 years ago. I know, in fact, some of the clients that I've worked with who had that longer pause did reach out to people that they worked with 18, 20 years ago, and kind of reignited some of those connections. And I think a lot of times we are reluctant maybe to reach out to somebody if we need something, but it's fun and beneficial for them too. It's fun to reconnect with somebody that you haven't talked to in 20 years, and it's fun to hear what they've been up to. And people are more receptive and open than you might think. And also people love to be able to help somebody else. It makes us feel good when we can help somebody else. So sometimes when we're in that position of asking for help, we can be really, really reluctant. But knowing that you're giving a gift to another person to be able to help you, and that more often than not, people are are open to reconnecting, even if it's been a long time. So definitely reach out to those contacts from long ago, and reach out to the people that you've met in your current life, and connect with them as well.
I'm actually on that point, I just, from my personal experience the past 2 weeks, I want to challenge, y'all that are thinking of connecting with old references. That's not stay-at-home mom or pause versus normal people that have been in work. I actually had a gentleman who worked for me 8 years ago call me and say, "Hey, can you give a reference?" He hasn't left work, but so I think sometimes just thinking that it's not specific to necessarily having a break, that some of these are challenges, just so it's okay. The break's okay. It's independent. That you still have to reach out to old references.
Great point. That's a great point, because a lot of times I think probably the challenge that returners have is that you feel like, because I've been out of the workforce for so long, I have these challenges. But you're right. A lot of times people who have been continuously working have some of these challenges as well. But just knowing that, that's a really great point, Linda. So thank you for bringing that up.
Sorry, it had just happened. So it was like one of the, and you know what? I had the exact reaction. My phone rang and I went, "Kirk, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to him in forever. Of course I will take a call for you."
Yeah, I love it.
So, okay, so there's another set of questions, and then I want to open it up if there's anybody live that wants to kind of ask some questions as well. Was talking about, and I'm seeing a little bit in the chat, of traditional full-time work versus freelance work versus new post-pandemic. What does work look like? Whole new ball game. How do you navigate, and how do you talk about those different options in both applying, finding?
Yes.
Have you decided?
Yes. So in the Thrive program, we do talk a lot about, resumes and LinkedIn and things that you might need for finding a traditional job. But there's also a path for freelancers, and a path for people who might be starting their own thing, whether that's a freelance organization or doing some work like copywriting or marketing or coaching or anything like that, are freelancers, or starting your own entrepreneurial venture. And we have a market research path for that. So you can take the market research path, or you can take the resume path, and you'll do work to help you further your freelance career as well. And so we've had several people go through the Thrive program who have started their own businesses, and been successful and got their start in Thrive. So it's been fun to watch. Yeah, definitely. There are different things to consider, but you also, everybody needs a LinkedIn. And so it's about, you'll get feedback from a freelancer perspective about how to craft a LinkedIn, or you'll get feedback if you're looking to return within a company or organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want real quick. I have a couple more stage ones, or pre-questions, but is there anybody online that really wants, I think you can raise your hand or unmute yourself, and we'll try and see if someone's asked something live.
Yeah, great.
I'm trying. Or even pop it.
Don't be shy.
You're asking me the chat, so I'm just seeing who wants to pop it. If not, I'll go back to the other ones. Just trying.
Okay. Maybe somebody will come on and raise their hand while we're asking the next question.
We'll do that. Okay. I'll start there. So the next one talks about, really, we've got someone said, basically, I'm gonna read this one. It's a little more complicated. It says, how can one do so well finding jobs for their millennial clients or college grads who are moving up the pay scale? But she's looking to expand her own horizons and her own practice, her own coaching practice. She's finding it challenging, and she believes she needs to be a lot more proficient in IT and technology. And what would be some advice on how to do that?
Yes. I know it's hard to do for ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we can be great at coaching other people, but for ourselves, I have a coach.
That's the truth.
We all need somebody. So thank you for that question. So I think that a little bit of your hesitation sounds like it's around technology, and I'm curious about that. I'm curious about how you think technology is holding you back, what you think it's preventing you from doing. And I know that there is a lot that has changed, but but I think that, another thing that I've incorporated in Thrive is using some common technology that people use today so that you can just start to get familiar with it and start to get comfortable with it. If you see an opportunity for using that in your coaching practice, I would definitely implement that. And go the first time we do anything, it's really scary and kind of overwhelming, but just kind of giving yourself grace to go through that process and start implementing some of those bits of technology that you think might make your job easier, to just start to practice and implement those and then go forward. So, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. I want to start. There's been a couple of questions specifically about the Thrive program. So I want to make sure like how they sign up, costs, syllabus. Is there a place they can go get resources or get an email? I want to make sure we address that.
Yes, definitely. So you can check out the website here, parentspivot.com/group-coaching. And there's lots of details on the Thrive program there. The cost is there. It's $9.97 for the 9 group sessions and the one-on-one session. And like I said, if you sign up before Saturday, then you'll get that bonus session. So you get 2 one-on-one sessions and the 9 group coaching sessions, which turns out to be less than $100 a session, which is an incredible deal for coaching. And you get the benefit of meeting with the same group, the same cohort over and over again, which just can do wonders for accountability and motivation. And the people, and like I said, the coaches who I've trained through this program, they've all been through the Thrive program. They're returners themselves. They're trained coaches through an ICF certified coaching program. They've got the skills, they've got the experience, and they know how to help you move forward. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go back to a few more questions. We're popping in a little bit. Let's check one. So this one, okay. So Wendy says, I have trouble choosing one thing to do. There are too many interests in being a stay-at-home mom, exposes you to so many more. Yes, we wear it. Well, Mom, you wear every hat. Suggestions on how to kind of narrow that down into where do you start?
That's a process, and that's a great problem to start with. It's a great problem to have, like having interests in so many different things, but it can also be a struggle because you feel like you're chasing one thing after another. Part of what we do in the Thrive program is really focus on you first for the clarity piece and really dive deep into who you are, what's important to you, your values, your strengths, your motivations, all of those things that make up who you are, so that you can know yourself and be more self-aware than you may be today, and really kind of hone in on what's going to be the most appealing for you. And so it's wonderful that you've got all of those interests, and we want to help you narrow down to figure out what's going to be most important for you, and that really comes from asking questions and understanding, what is important for you? What do you want? How do you want your career to look? What do you want the trajectory to look like? There's all sorts of questions to ask to help you dive a little deeper and focus in a little bit more on what's next.
Okay. I think I'm about to be told I have to do the last one. Oh,
it looks like we have
raised your hand. All right, go for it. I'm going. Yep, I see it too. Yay. All right.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much. This was great. I'm really glad I signed up for this. I have kind of just a comment thinking about kind of future generations and how this can kind of apply to future generations. I think, unfortunately, one of the things that, our education at WashU kind of failed us in a way was not preparing us for these difficult decisions that we, particularly as women, have to face, and how to prepare for that and think that through and make those decisions. And, just kind of anecdotally talking to some younger people in my life, I think that there is more discussion about that in career counseling centers and women leadership organizations and all of that. But I really would encourage you to, if you haven't, talk to the Career Center. Like, how can some of this knowledge be incorporated into discussions at WashU to prepare women for the, making these decisions in the future and not having so much fear and, lack of confidence and feelings of kind of like shame and embarrassment about, these decisions. So just thank you very much. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I think that it's so true that when we get to this point, there are lots of challenges that we face that we may not realize that we were going to face when we were 20 years ago. And so and I think even contemplating them sometimes at that point is difficult. I also coach college students. I coach college students in leadership development, and many of them, sometimes it's just kind of it just is so beyond where they are right now that they can't realize it and can't grasp it. But some of the people are so excited. And some of the people that I coach in college are like, wow, that's so cool that you're helping people get back to paid work, because, I want to be able to have that option for myself. I want to be able to take a career pause and to be able to do that and then get back to paid work. And I'm glad to know that companies like Parents Pivot are out there and advocating for that and helping people with that transition, because I think that is something sometimes we can't think about it, and sometimes we do think about it, and we're excited that there are resources out there to support us and help us get back. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
No, okay, so I'm allowed I get one more question.
Okay.
So I'm actually, it's on this, it kind of follows that that path of, so Jane had asked the question saying one of the obstacles you mentioned is feeling like you can't go back because there's family responsibilities. You don't know what else could do. How do you go back? How do you deal with the logistics? This is something, I love very much. This is my company is all about. So I'm totally in love. I mean, I get it. But there's also things from the career side and what you experience, Anna, with your people that you're coaching to return, saying, what are the things you do at home? What do you do with them? And how do you prepare your family for the changes? Because it is going to be change, and change can be scary. If you're in Houston, you can hire Bevy, just so you know, we help you out. But we'll be nationwide eventually. We'll get there. Exactly. But in the meantime, Anna can help you coach through it.
I know. Yes. And that's awesome, Linda, because I feel like you really saw that need. And that's how you founded Bevy, which is, I'm not sure you went through enough detail about it, because it supports people with everything that you need done at your home. And so I think that your organization is really so helpful for if you're contemplating a return to paid work and you're realizing that I do a lot of work at home, and who's going to do that? So Bevy's going to do that. And then that's another conversation that we also have in the Thrive program, because all of these returners are also going through that process. And how do I, what kind of conversations do I need to have? How do I talk about this with my family? How do I talk about this with my kids? How do I, if, roles are going to change with my partner, how do I communicate that? And there have been studies that show, a lot of times we're concerned about our kids. I've been staying home and now I'm going to go back to paid work. How is it going to impact my kids? And then there are studies that have shown that children of working mothers are more likely to be in leadership positions when they get to be working age. And there are lots of benefits to being a working mother as well. And so we sometimes focus on what is not going to work well, or what we feel like is not going to work well, because we don't have that lived experience yet to draw upon. But to know that there can be different benefits that you get from having a working parent. I know from my own perspective, just seeing my mom be able to do work that she loved and have her own thing was hugely impactful for us. She would come home and tell us stories about how she forgot to make chicken for one event and what she did to kind of like address that challenge and how to move through that challenge. So we had lots of conversations growing up about like mistakes that she would make at work and how to kind of address address those and how to fix those. So I think that there are different things that you can give your child by being a stay-at-home parent, and there are different things that you can give your child by being a working parent. And sometimes when we're moving from one to the other, we can focus more on the negative than we can the positive. So thinking through some of those positive benefits as well, and hiring Bevy to help you through that.
I know there's more questions, but our time is at the end. So I think Anna's left your some resources. You can reach out to her, obviously, directly. So thank you so much for participating. We look forward to seeing you in the future programs. Check out Parents Pivot, links provided. I think an email is going out later. And stay tuned for upcoming events sponsored by WashU alumni.
Yes. So
thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you,
Anna.
Please do check out, the Thrive program. I'd love to see some of you guys in that program. And if you have any questions, definitely sign up for our call.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'd love to connect with anybody.
Yes.
We're all experiencing the same thing. So
yes.
For sure.
And connect on LinkedIn for sure.
LinkedIn. All right. Thank you guys.